Mockingjay and Catching Fire. It's kind of weird. It's like I do like the Hunger Games. I really like the first book. The first book was probably, I think if I go back and think about it, it's probably my favorite of the trilogy. But the problem is, when I read Catching Fire and I read Mockingjay, the world kind of splintered for me. Like, I felt like we were, like, the world did not make sense. It wasn't sound, and I guess I can just suspend disbelief, and I do, because there are a lot of things in the first book that also don't make sense, but I still enjoy it to the degree. But I feel like once we actually got into this story and learned more about what happens after the Hunger Games, it to me made even less sense of how this stuff can go on. It just didn't click for me, honestly. So I feel like Mockingjay and Catching Fire should just really be one book, because I feel like the best way to read it is to go from one to the other, because Mockingjay really rehashes a lot of stuff that we saw already in the Hunger Games for me. You get introduced to some new characters, and that's great, but I feel like Mockingjay feels like a real sequel, because there is, to me, more character growth and more of a story going on. But at the same time, they just prove how unrealistic this thing is, because I question how President Snow could have stayed in power for so long, which is a stupid system. Like, the Hunger Games system just does not make sense. So there will be spoilers for this, because I'm mainly commenting on Mockingjay, because I feel like Catching Fire really just, but beyond like the ending stuff, what happens and other things, it to me, it's just like it could just have been meshed together with Mockingjay for the most part. The most of the details I just don't care about. Mockingjay was really the one that I thought the most about and really haunted me. So basically, Mockingjay continues a month or two after Catching Fire, after District 12 is bombed to the ground by President Snow because of Katniss and her refusal to do what he wants. And she, along with Gale, are rescued by the very thinly veiled USSR parody that is District 13. And she becomes the symbol of the rebellion, the Mockingjay. And it's in this book that we really learn about some of the other characters, like Finnick. I love Finnick. He's my favorite. I need to know who's casting as him, because if they fuck him up, I'll be really upset. But we really learn about him, and we learn how really, really incompetent Snow is. I mean, the progress that the book made story-wise was good, because it was breaking away from the whole games motif that I felt got kind of tired in Catching Fire. And I like that Katniss, you feel in this book the most how broken down Katniss is from the events of the games. And I feel like Katniss's character is probably the only character that remains solid for me throughout this trilogy. Throughout the entire trilogy, I like Katniss. I cared about Katniss. But everyone else I go in and out with. Even Peeta, who I enjoyed in the first book, kinda. In this book, it's kind of like, it's just a sympathy ploy for me to want him to be with Katniss, and I can't. Because this love triangle to me is bullshit. Because it never fit to me. Because Katniss, she's a really, like, she's human to me. She's not perfect. She's not really that well educated. She's 16 in a horrible situation, but she's doing it the best that she can. She doesn't make all the right decisions, but she's always acting like Katniss. Like, that when Katniss is Katniss, she is Katniss. Except when they make her love triangle Katniss. The love triangle, to me, is totally forced in, because in my mind, for me, Katniss never seemed like she was in love with either Gale or Peeta. Like, she cares about them both, and she wants them to survive. But I never saw a point where I could be like, yeah, she's in love with Gale. Yeah, she's in love with Peeta. It just didn't really seem to be in her character for her to end up with anybody. I mean, just the way she talks in, like, other stuff, it's like Gale is like a friend to her. Peeta is someone that she had mixed, confused feelings about. But I never thought that she would love him like that. Like, they felt like really close friends, but I never felt like Katniss was interested in a relationship with anybody. And basically, they made Peeta the ultimate victim to get all the sympathy, while they make Gale the uber dick so that, you know, you can kind of hate him and just push him aside, which is just really cheap. I hate that anyway. I felt like, you know, you already are pushing for me to like one person over the other, and you're not doing it very well. Katniss cares as much as I do about this love triangle, so I just feel like it should stop. And that's one of the big things about the Hunger Games that really bothered me. Like, as it grew on, I felt like it had to play up all those YA tropes as much as it could, and that the big one's the love triangle, because that's just pointless shit. Yeah. And the biggest flaw with this book that appeared to me after reading the whole series is that this world makes no sense. The people in charge are incompetent, number one. The system for keeping people in line is flawed. And there is no way that this place had managed to exist for so long. I mean, it makes no sense, because the whole concept of the districts and first of all, anytime, like, I feel this way about Divergent too. Anytime when you have, like, districts or different class labels or stuff, like, why would you do that? Because all you're doing is giving people fealty and loyalty to something other than you and the government. Like, that's stupid. You shouldn't even do that, because everyone gets loyal to their people and not you. Districts and all that stuff is just stupid to me. I don't understand why they do that. But, why do you do that? Why do you advertise the deaths of children on screen? I mean, it's like, do you think no one will rally for children's death? I mean, the children are the future. If you kill them, what do they have to live for? Like, for me, I feel like it makes no sense that the deaths of their kids shouldn't motivate them to fight more than anything else, because that's their kids. And there's no way that they can really, you know, save them. So wouldn't it make more sense for them to just keep rebelling? Because it's like, children are not something that most people like children. Even when you hate children, you don't want to see them get hurt or abused or anything like that. That makes people angry. There's a reason why in jail pedophiles are the lowest of the low. It's despicable, because you should not hurt children. So I don't understand how they managed to pull off this whole thing well, especially when there is no benefits to winning the Hunger Games. That's the whole thing. Like, what's set up in the Hunger Games, like, your people win, they win stuff, and the champion gets all this stuff, and they realize that that's not true. They get treated horribly. Their families get hurt. Some of them get pimped out, like they become prostitutes for the government. Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. Why would you treat them badly? Wouldn't those be the people that you would want to have be treated the best, so that they could say how great the government is, how giving they are, how they help us? But instead you gave all these champions and you make them, you know, get treated so badly and horribly. Like, why would that not make them revolt? I never really got why they weren't revolting earlier. Like, to me, the book just never sold me on that. And so for the longest time, like, even when I was watching the movie, I just kind of like, I just don't believe this anymore, because I just, the second and third book to me ruined the franchise. Not because I think they're bad, because I still think that they're not bad books. And I don't even, like, people are upset about the ending of Mockingjay. Other than the marriage, I don't really dislike anything about the ending. Like, the what happened to Prim, that to me is, like, it sucks, and it really, like, it does, I understand why people are mad about it, but that really wasn't what was sad to me. What was sad to me is what happened to Katniss. Like, I felt like by putting Katniss the way she was at the end, they took away part of who she was and who she had always been to make love happen. And I didn't feel like, I just didn't like that. To me, that was one of the worst parts of reading Mockingjay. And I just, like, that was always my problem. Like, the world just kind of falls apart. Like, why don't you just, like, they're the victors, keep them around you, treat them well, you know, keep them in the capital if you want, so you can keep an eye at them and control how they're viewed by the public. But none of that happens. You know, it just doesn't seem to work for me. And I know it works for a lot of other people, but I don't buy this dystopia. But at the same time, I feel like for all the things I don't buy about it, it's still better than most of the other young adult dystopian novels, because I don't like Divergent. I think Divergent makes, like, no sense at all. I don't understand why you would do that. So many things, like, I just question it. Like, I feel like with a dystopian novel, you have to understand that I'm going to think about how your stuff works. Like, this works. I'm sorry to bring it in and cause all that debate. It's not because I think, like, that they have to combat each other because I think they have to fight, or it's not about that. It's because one manages to understand that if you're going to do a dystopia like this, you have to have it in a certain scope. If you're gonna if your whole thing is about these games and how they're fighting and stuff, well, just make it about that. Because when you add all this extra stuff in there and you want to make it like all this super complex, it falls apart, because your basis for it is not strong enough to carry on through all of this. And so, despite how I do like it, I also just feel like it falls apart, and they try to make Katniss into someone who she's not in order to facilitate a love triangle that I just don't agree with. I just think it doesn't make any sense. I mean, it's not about, like, I enjoy reading it, but at the same time, I just don't get much out of it. here's the thing. I bought the first book of the Hunger Games and I gave it away to somebody. I bought the entire box set of the Hunger Games while I was away in England, and I gave it away to somebody. Like, once I finished reading it, I just was like, someone else can have it now. That's how I felt about it. Like, I read it, I was done, I accomplished something. I could know all the interests, I could read everyone's spoilers and not be spoiled. That was what the Hunger Games was to me. It was something I had to read because everyone else was reading it, and once I was done reading it, I was just done with it.